Hey, all, welcome to my channel. Okay, so basically, we're seeing Piastri. I've said in my prior videos as well in this channel, basically talking about the fact that I think we're going to be witnessing Piastri. It's similar how we witnessed Max Verstappen back in 2016, 17, basically, where you're seeing how good he was at that point, and even though he was reckless, you still saw his raw talent. You saw that he would be have the ability to become a champion, so long as he had the right cars, basically. And so the thing that comes down to is this: is how long can McLaren hold on to Piastri? Because let's be honest, everyone's going to say Lando, and everyone's going to focus on Lando. It kind of sucks the fact that you have both Lando and Piastri, and like it's McLaren's letting him sort of fight it out in a ways to figure out who they should designate as the number one. I think that's a bad decision on their part. In reality, is they should decide on their own. I mean, if they're gonna go down with Lando, then make it Lando. But the problem is, it depends on the contract and what Piastri signed with McLaren. To the point where, like, I think they said, okay, Piastri is not going to be like the number two, but more so to the point where he would be the equivalent or his equal, basically. Now, the real question that comes down to this is if Piastri is unhappy with McLaren, he might pull another Lewis Hamilton to the point. Let's be honest, McLaren when they had Lewis, uh, he was great, and he left at the point where McLaren was declining, and he jumped onto Mercedes, but it showed his brilliance at that point as a driver. To the point where like McLaren is like you kind of wonder if Lewis was still with them back then in 2008, 2009, and 10 onwards. How good, how many more championships would McLaren have had? Granted, the fact is like yeah, the car declined a little bit, but at the same time, with his input, it would have changed probably a lot of things dramatically. So the same thing comes down to Piastri. Is like what would happen with Piastri if he, let's say, he wins a championship and he decides to leave? Because if it's another situation where it's going to be another Hamilton, Alonso situation, I don't think McLaren knows how to handle it. I mean, it's a good problem to have, but at the same time, it's something where you're going to lose one basically at that point. And who do you lose? So the real question comes down to this: is can McLaren lock down Piastri for the long term? Because I hate to say this, but like as good as Lando is, I think Piastri is far more better, and I think he we will see him win multiple championships. Now coming on to Red Bull itself, I'm not sure what's going on, honestly, to the point where like Max, maybe he's reverting back to his old self as sort of an immature dude, basically. I mean, it's one of those things where it doesn't seem like he's gotten the actual expertise or the wisdom to needed to drive. It's almost reminiscent of almost what Sebastian Vettel was. I mean, as good as Sebastian Vettel was as a driver, he was temperamental. Let's be honest, he was temperamental. He had a massive ego, but as all drivers do, they all have massive egos. But the thing is like you saw that Vettel was never able to get most out of his car. And I think we saw it to the point where like when Vettel went to Aston Martin, uh, or AK, yeah, an Aston Martin in this case, you saw what happened. Like he wasn't doing so well. But then when Alonso came in the following year, it showed that there was a dramatic increase. Alonso showed how good of a driver he is compared to Vettel. So it makes you wonder, like, to the point, is this happening with Max Verstappen? If he doesn't have a great car, can he actually survive? Can he actually not survive, but more so, can he actually produce as a champion? Now, granted, I think this year he should still be able to win the championship. If he finishes in the top six in the next couple of races, I think he should be good. Unless, of course, Lando wins the next five in a row, or next five, at least five. He has to win five in the top P1. He has to do P1, and then at least he has to do P1 in three races, and then finish in the top three with the next three at that point for him to actually tie up with Max. But in reality is McLaren is back. Mercedes, I don't know what's going to happen with them. George Russell, I think, got lucky yesterday as well too. Honestly, I think he got lucky the fact that he was able to finish P3, because let's be honest, it should have been between Perez and Sainz. Kind of sucks. I don't know. It's hard to determine who was at fault. In reality, I mean, honestly, looking very closely, it was a little bit of Sainz's fault. A little bit. I mean, like, yeah, Checo should have given him a little leeway But Checo is a driver and he has to be aggressive. He's trying to get that P3 spot. And the fact that he almost lost it, it was one of those things where, like, Sainz just came out of nowhere. So it is a little bit of Sainz's fault. And that's why you're not seeing Sainz, like, pointing fingers back at Checo. He's like, it is what it is. Meaning he knows he knows it's his fault. But in any case, Checo, I mean, this kind of sucks for Red Bull now because now McLaren's up in the constructor spot. They might win the constructors unless somehow Checo changes and he becomes what he was 3 years ago or even 2 years ago, where he was good enough to finish the number two spot. He's got to start winning these races, at least winning these races or finishing in the top three. If he doesn't, it kind of sucks. I've always said that Sainz should have gone back. Red Bull should have signed Sainz. I mean, I know he doesn't want to be the compliment to, definitely not the compliment to, Verstappen, but it could have been a battle with that point as well too, and that would have been a good problem for Christian Horner at that point as well too. But reality is, it is what it is. Unfortunately, Sainz. Hopefully, Williams goes really back, goes way up there again at that point. Now the real question comes down to is what happens next year with Red Bull? Because quite honestly, I thought Red Bull, Christian Horner, he was doing really well, but now the fact that he's losing the talent, meaning his technical chiefs, technical engineers, and such to opposing teams, I think it's a problem where it's a bad problem for his part because he's not finding the right talent to basically replace him. That's the unfortunate part. Finding good talent is hard to do basically in the F1 world. I hate to say this, but he's gonna have to go outside and not promote within, but go from the outside and get some people in there because honestly, and I'm not talking about like outside as in like within the existing Formula One. He might have to go into the Formula Two, Formula Three, basically, or even Indy for that matter, because reality is like this is not working for them, and like if they don't do something very quickly, look for 2025 to be the year where like they go from where they were number one down to like number four, and it's going to be reminiscent of just like those years with Seb, basically, where they were good for 4 to 5 years and then they just slowly decline. I hate to say this, but like Daniel Ricciardo, you've got to get rid of Daniel. I hate to say this, but like Daniel's got to go. I'm sorry, but like I know Horner's got a soft spot for him, but he's got to let him go. He's got to bring in the proper talent. Checo, I hate to say this, but Checo's got to go as well too. I mean, I feel for him. Unless he turns things around in the next couple of races, this is not it. Checo's got to go. I just say maybe he retires or he goes off to one of the other main races, like the way Grosjean did. But in any case, I hate to say it, but this might be we might be starting to see the decline of Red Bull for a little bit there as well. I think they come back up again. Mercedes, I hate to say this, but like let's be honest, Toto Wolff, I don't think he's a good director because, like, look, we've seen what's going on. He inherited a really good team and a really good car, and he just didn't do much modifications. And you saw when the rules changed, he doesn't know how to adapt. I think that's his problem. They don't know how to adapt really well. McLaren, they have adapted. Red Bull, they adapt, but they adapt. For them to adapt, they adapt very quickly, and then just like trial and error for them. So let's. For next year, I hate to say this. Well, I don't hate to say this, but like next year, it's going to be between McLaren and Ferrari, and it'd be good to see Ferrari to get back up there again. I would love to see Lewis actually win a race again, so that he becomes the greatest. Honestly, between him and Schumacher, it's still hard to say. But if he can get that one race, one championship, and one ups Schumacher, he can be considered the GOAT. Until maybe Max can get back up there, depending on how long Max stays with essentially Red Bull, and if Red Bull adjusts very quickly. But with that, I'll leave it at that. Please like if you like this video, please hit the like button. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed to this channel. And also, you're welcome to leave a comment in the comment section. I do read all my comments, and I do respond to them when they warrant a response. But with that, I'll leave it at that. Again, let me know your thoughts as well too. Like, who do you think is the next best? I mean, honestly, that 17-year-old kid that Mercedes is bringing up, I think it might be too early to say. I hate to say this. I feel sorry for Mick Schumacher, Michael Schumacher's kid. Mick seems to have had the talent, but I don't think he was well groomed, specifically with Haas. I think he was brought up too quickly in Haas. He probably should have gone to maybe Alpine or maybe even Aston Martin, one of those two probably would have been the perfect for him basically at that point. Honestly, Stroll has to go and replace him with someone else proper. But with that, I'll leave it at that. We'll see what happens with Alonso. Maybe Alonso retires this year. I don't know. That's a possibility. But with that, I'll leave it at that. Unfiltered, unedited, and of course, always unrehearsed. Until next time.